Hi, I'm Donna Walker, CEO of Hoosier Energy. We've been part of the Monroe County business community for more than 50 years and are excited to take part in this year's Opportunity Tour. Our headquarters is in Bloomington, but we have operations centers throughout southern Indiana and even parts of Illinois. Chances are, if you turn on a light or charge your phone in one of these areas, the electricity is being provided by one of our 18-member distribution cooperatives. I'm an Orange County native and am inspired to work for a company that has a direct impact on the community where I grew up. Hoosier Energy employs about 400 local and regional residents in fields like engineering, accounting, communications, project management, information technology, line work, and power generation, to name a few. It's an exciting place to work, learn, and grow, no matter which career stage you're currently in. And someday in the future, we hope to see you in our boardroom, hallways, and operations centers. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to Hoosier Energy.
Welcome to Hoosier Energy, a wholesale power provider established in 1949 to produce reliable and affordable power for the rural electric cooperatives who had electrified rural southern Indiana a decade before. Headquartered in Bloomington, Indiana, our modern facility houses the company's managerial, financial, human resources, business development, and power marketing functions. Hoosier Energy's operations center is located 17 miles west of headquarters in Owen County, just east of Spencer. This 82,000 square foot facility is shared by the operational, engineering, garage, and maintenance personnel, along with about 1/3 of the power delivery crews. Also located at the Operations Center is Hoosier Energy's System Control Center, where operators control and monitor the generation and transmission of electricity 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Hoosier Energy's generation assets encompass an all-of-the-above energy strategy that includes coal and natural gas, as well as a host of renewable energy sources, including wind, hydro, landfill gas, and solar. Hoosier Energy voluntarily adopted a program in 2006 that targets supplying 10% of member energy requirements by 2025 from a portfolio of renewables projects. Our facilities demonstrate Hoosier Energy's commitment to a more diverse energy portfolio, which just a short time ago was 100% coal. So what is a generation and transmission electric cooperative, or a cooperative in general? We are a not-for-profit entity with a mission to provide assured, reliable, and competitively priced energy and services in a safe and environmentally acceptable manner. We do this by practicing the same 7 guiding principles as other cooperatives around the world. Hoosier Energy generates and transmits power to our 18-member owners, who are also member-owned electric cooperatives governed by co-op principles. The 18-member distribution cooperatives in turn deliver and sell the electricity directly to their members, end consumers like you and me. Collectively, member cooperatives operate and maintain more than 36,000 miles of distribution line and provide electric service to nearly 300,000 members, or about 100,000 people in 59 Indiana and Illinois counties. Cooperatives are organizations rooted in the democratic process of a one-member, one-vote election of their representatives. Distribution members elect directors to represent them. Much like America's democratic process, distribution members are highly encouraged to raise concerns through their elected representative. The Hoosier Energy Board of Directors is comprised of one director from each of the 18-member systems. The board is the governing body responsible for developing corporate policies, approving major operational and financial projects, and reviewing power supply strategies. Hoosier Energy's president and chief executive officer, along with senior staff, carry out the company's daily management. Generating and transmitting electricity is an inherently dangerous business. That's why safety is of paramount importance to Hoosier Energy. Our motto, Safe by Choice, reflects a corporate initiative that promotes a continuous journey from good to great. Our numbers are consistently strong year after year, and we've achieved better than industry averages for safety records. But at Hoosier Energy, safety is more than just numbers. It's a way of life. Our goal is for all employees to be injury-free at home and at work. Safety defines our programs and our mindset. Our nationally recognized apprenticeship program has trained hundreds of power delivery personnel from Hoosier Energy and the member systems. The Hoosier Energy Apprenticeship Training and Safety, or HEATS program, includes hands-on and academic training to provide line workers and others with skills in climbing, distribution and transmission systems, and power plant, meter relay, and substation operations. As you can tell, fulfilling our mission extends beyond just managing our generation and transmission assets. Our value-added services include innovative rate strategies, energy efficiency programs, an extensive safety and training program, marketing and communication support, and environmental education programs with resources for teachers and students in our communities. Hoosier Energy also offers valuable economic development assistance to member systems to develop jobs in their communities. And our comprehensive demand-side management, or DSM program, greatly aids member cooperatives with reducing electric consumption at peak times and encourages use of higher efficiency products. Reducing demand helps Hoosier Energy defer the need to add costly generation plants to meet demand and helps lower consumers' electric bills. This holds true for homes and farms as well as large commercial and industrial businesses. For the consumer and our ever-increasing digital lives, electricity is literally at our fingertips and often taken for granted. Once a luxury, electricity is now a necessity in our everyday lives. At Hoosier Energy, the complex process of producing and transmitting electricity takes the coordination and cooperation of hundreds of employees across all divisions. To reiterate, we all share in our mission and responsibility to assure reliable and affordable electricity and services for our member systems and their consumers, while doing so in a safe and environmentally acceptable manner. We are an integral part of this process and part of a nationwide alliance of 900 electric cooperatives dedicated to providing superior service while adhering to the 7 cooperative principles. Hoosier Energy and its employees are guided by these principles every day.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you all to the panel discussion with Hoosier Energy. And so we've gathered some professionals from multiple disciplines within Hoosier Energy in multiple locations, by the way, not just in Bloomington, Monroe County, to talk a little bit with you guys about what we do, what Hoosier Energy is, some of the career trajectories of some of the professionals we have today, and answer some questions that you guys submitted about Hoosier Energy. So my name is Christy Langley. I'm an employee at Hoosier Energy as well, and I will be moderating today. So I will be doing the easy job, and everybody else will be answering those questions. And so I'm going to go around the horn of what my screen looks like, because it's the one that's doing the recording, and ask everybody to introduce themselves. And with your introduction, talk about what your current job title is at Hoosier Energy. Also, what led you there, right? So maybe you went to school for something completely different than what you're doing now. Maybe you're doing exactly what you went to school for. So talk a little bit about, after you left high school, what your school experience was, or education experience, and then what jobs before your current job led you to where you are. So we're going to start first with Corey Sam.
Hello, I'm Corey Sam. I'm currently a fuels analyst at Hoosier Energy. I've been in this role for about 3.5 years now. Basically, as a fuels analyst, I create and oversee our fuel and chemical supply contracts, coal, natural gas, limestone, and some various other chemicals that we need for our generating facilities. Kind of what led me, or starting off with Hoosier Energy, I started out as an auxiliary operator in 2010 at our Merrim generating station, the coal-fired plant. Worked in operations for about 4.5 years, transitioned over to the alternative energy group, which consists of the landfill gas to energy facilities, as well as our 10 1-megawatt solar sites. I worked in that group for a couple years and then moved over into my current role.
And then Corey, do you want to just hint a little bit about what you do on the portfolio team as well?
Yes, along with being a fuels analyst, I'm also on the portfolio group, which our main goal for that group is to basically, since we've announced the retirement of the Merrim generating station, we have essentially 1,000 megawatts that we have to replace with other sources to make sure that our members are taken care of and are supplied with assured, reliable energy. So basically, our main drive or our main task is to come up with a diverse portfolio, which includes solar, wind, thermal, financial products to fit those individual buckets. So that's what our current goal is at this point on the portfolio team.
Great, thank you. Ryan, you're next.
Hi, I'm Ryan Henderson, Senior Manager of Emerging Energy Resources here at Hoosier Energy. I've been in this role for a little bit over a year. Primarily, we deal with emerging technologies and generation sources. We're working a lot with electric vehicles and the transition to electric vehicles now, solar installations and microgrids, which we'll probably get into a little bit later. Originally, I had gone to school for technology education in my undergraduate, which is everything from woodworking to welding to computers and electronics. My senior year, I found electronics and went and decided to get a master's degree, electronics computer technology at Indiana State. And during that, I received an internship at Hoosier Energy working for the IT department. From there, I moved to engineering of the Merrim generating station, ran the control systems, programming and control systems, one of the few rare lucky instances where you get to fall into something you went to school for. And after that, I moved into the operations manager of the Merrim generating station and to this role today. So that's pretty much in a nutshell how I ended up where I am right now.
Great. Sarah, you're next.
Hi, I'm Sarah Ostrander. I am the senior system planning engineer. Used to be the substation engineer for Hoosier Energy. I got a degree in electrical engineering from the University of Evansville with a focus on power. So when I graduated, I actually was in Chicago for about 10 years working for the transit agency there, providing power design for the train system. I moved back to Indiana about 10 years ago, started working at Hoosier as a substation design engineer once again. And substations, I'll define it just real quickly. It's kind of the intermediary between the power generation and your house. It's the middleman for you so that you don't receive such high power from the generating station or, that you can actually service what's in your home. Anyway, and now I am a system planning engineer, which is essentially kind of grid planning for Southern Indiana. It's a response to like a new factory is moving in. We look at that. We make sure that we're able to service that area. A subdivision of homes, something like that. We look forward usually 5 years plus, and we make sure that we're able to accomplish the power needs for that particular generation with what we have on our system. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell.
Great. And I'm even learning something because I did not realize you were a fellow transit nerd, Sarah, because I love mass transit in my previous life as an urban planner. And I love that whole schematic and logistics of the facility. So we're going to have to talk sometime.
Yeah, I've got some samples, like, pieces of rail and chairs and things like that. You'd love to see. Yeah,
that's
awesome. We'll get together. Yeah.
Okay. Well, next is Kyle.
Excuse me. Hi, I'm Kyle Parker. My current position at Hoosier is Manager of Financial Services. You might be saying, well, what is financial services? Well, the most important aspect of that job is to make sure we have the money we need when we need it. So if we look out into the future and we need more money, I help ensure that we are able to borrow it. And if we have more money than we currently need, I work to invest it. So that's probably the single most important piece. So how did I get here? I'm not going to tell you what year, but I was originally a bachelor bulldog, and then Bloomington South after that. I went to Indiana University to study finance and accounting. So I've mostly worked in fields that I went to school for. I've been with Hoosier about 11 years now. I started in accounting, and held a few different positions there. And then I did something completely different by going over to Hoosier's power forecasting department. So then we're projecting what we think we're going to sell for the next 20 years, which is really interesting. And from there, came back to finance. So I've kind of followed some curiosity paths over the years, which I think has served me well. And yeah, now back in finance, which is what I went to school for.
Thanks, Kyle. And last but not least is John.
My name is John Bobbitt. I'm the manager of human resources and labor relations. My past probably a little bit more unconventional than the others. I started out, my degree was in business management from Indiana State University, and actually planned on going to work at Disney World, believe it or not. I wanted to go down there in the recreational, that was what my minor was in, and was the executive director of a YMCA, and then spent 17 years in the banking industry before coming to Hoosier in 2011. So I've been with Hoosier for 10 years and started as the administrative coordinator for our Miriam generating facility, which is basically responsible for anything other than power generation, HR, environmental, you name it, that kind of thing. And then about 3 years ago, transitioned into my new role in human resources.
Very good. Okay, well, thanks everybody for that. And so we have some pre-populated questions from some of our middle schoolers across the county. And so what I'm going to do is ask those questions, pose those questions, and who they're from, and then kind of direct some of our folks that we have here on the panel to answer those. So of course, even if you're not directed, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add. So the first question is from Landon, and Landon asks, what natural resources do you use the most? So I'd like a couple people to specifically answer this one. Corey, if you could talk about what natural resources we've used in our past and our present. And then Ryan, if you could talk a little bit about how we are transitioning the use of those natural resources and what we're looking to fill our portfolio with in the future. So Corey, we'll start with you.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question there. Our two of the largest uses of the natural resources at our facilities, one being coal at our Merrim generating station. We take supplies from local coal mines here in Sullivan County within a 25-mile radius. So fairly local supplies, provides a reliable fuel supply for us for that station. The other big natural resource we use is natural gas, and we have 3 natural gas generating stations, one being over in Illinois and then 2 of them here in south central Indiana. And so those gas supplies come from various intra and interstate pipelines that we have hookups to.
Very good. Ryan, do you want to kind of take it from there?
Yeah, and along the lines of what Corey is discussing, natural resources that we are starting to see develop even more within our portfolio are wind, hydro, and the most prevalent will be solar in the future is what we anticipate. As the technology has had innovations in these areas, the cost of power from those resources has come down dramatically and become competitive with coal and natural gas. So what we project to see here in the next few years out by 2030 is our transition from coal and gas to more renewable sources, and we're projecting somewhere around an 80% reduction in our carbon footprint out in the 2030 time frame, just due to using these different natural resources.
Yeah, and it's very interesting the different ways that those natural resources actually produce that energy and capacity as well, right? So whenever you think about the plant and the natural gas plants, it's all very technical and complicated, but everything from crushing the coal to firing up the boilers and just the logistics of all that. I mean, it requires a lot of people and energy and resources. And then the same's true, though, when you transition to renewable, right? I mean, the land mass that you need for solar farms, or the different political discussions of siting a big wind turbine in your city or town. And so there's different challenges and opportunities with the different resources, but it's much more complicated than Corey and Ryan made it, and I appreciate that oversimplification. So that's something that is good and bad. It's not so complicated you can't figure it out, but there are a lot of steps and pieces to that. So thank you very much. Anybody else have anything to add on that natural resource use piece? No? Good. Okay, so our next question is from Finn, and Finn says, how do you plan to expand in the future? So I'd like to hit this on a couple of levels. John, I'd like you to talk first a little bit about potential employee expansion or retraining, right? As we talk about NERM and the reuse there for some of our employees. And then Sarah, I'll transition to you a little bit about system planning and the transmission network and how you kind of see that tying into your comment a little bit about commercial or industrial siting or just the growth of our 18-member cooperative. So John, I'll start with you first.
Okay. This is kind of an area that we take a lot of pride in. People are our biggest asset, really. And we've got several sources. One of the things we've done with our people that are going to be potentially affected at Miriam is partnered with Indiana State University to create what is called an emergency energy technology certificate. It's a program that Hoosier Energy is paying for to train those folks that have worked in the generating station to better prepare them for opportunities on the line side or power delivery, that kind of thing. We also have right now 29 people that work at Miriam. They're involved in apprenticeship programs, and apprenticeship programs are kind of a big tool that we use for all of our craft workers, people in the union, and people that perform those duties. Tuition reimbursement. We have a fantastic tuition reimbursement program. We pay for people to go to school, and we're actually paying for degrees that maybe aren't even applicable to the work that people are doing currently in order to broaden our horizons and help those people be able to do different things. So I think, it's one of the neat things we do is always work to groom our own people to make them more successful and more usable in different areas.
Very good. And then Sarah, what do you think about your kind of asset planning or different things about the transmission network?
Yeah, so on a yearly basis, I meet with all of our member cooperatives to kind of get a sense of what their power needs are, what industry is moving into any area. So for the system planning department, we very much look towards the future. We want to prepare our system to be able to provide power to anybody that comes into the area. So we expand in terms of, maybe we'll build more substations, maybe we'll build more transmission lines, maybe we'll upgrade what we already have so that we're able to best serve whatever, there's a new manufacturing plant moving in, and we want to make sure that we have a substation and the appropriate power to serve that. So our expansion is kind of more related to the technical side of things, where we're ensuring that everything we do serves our member cooperatives in the most appropriate way and the best way, so that they have everything they need to keep their business running or their homes running.
And so to marry your guys' answers, if you have a particular area of the service territory that is growing and you have to add substations or line or whatever that asset improvement includes, sometimes does that translate into having to add an additional employee, whether it's from a maintenance perspective, or do those two growth components go hand in hand even if they're kind of a slow growth piece?
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah, for
and we
sure. Especially,
Sarah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, especially on the construction side, as we build these things, we got to make sure we have the personnel available to help build them, to design them. So yeah, definitely. definitely they're related.
Very cool. Okay, and so our next question is from Ava, and Ava says, what companies buy their electricity from Hoosier Energy? So I'm going to toss this one specifically to Kyle Parker. And Kyle, if you can talk a little bit about some of our 18-member cooperatives and some of their respective C&I, which is an acronym we use for commercial and industrial customers, that some of our students might be familiar with in and around from a consumer-based business, and talk a little bit about what companies are on some of our cooperatives lines.
Sure. So I'm going to answer that question, but I do want to say just first, talk a little bit about how Hoosier Energy sells electricity, and where we sell it. So Hoosier operates as a not-for-profit generation and transmission cooperative, which means that we exist to provide a service, not necessarily to make as much money as we can. And that service is to provide all of the electricity needs for the 18 member cooperatives that are our customers. And those member cooperatives are the distribution cooperatives that ultimately kind of sell the power off to all of the homes and all of the businesses in the area that we serve. So Hoosier generates or buys the power. We sell it to the distribution cooperative, and it's the distribution cooperative that is then the connection to businesses and households. So that's kind of how Hoosier Energy sells power, and we do this in the rural or kind of the less populated areas of southern Indiana and southeastern Illinois. So these are the spaces kind of around and in between some of the larger cities like Indianapolis, Bloomington, Evansville. So we serve a lot of land, and so as you might guess, if we kind of transition into the types of customers we serve a lot of agriculture loads, a lot of farms. So these would be things like corn farms, soybeans, and also farms that raise chickens, turkeys, cows, pigs. But we also serve one of the largest egg producers in the entire country, in Roseacre Farms. So those are kind of where we sell electricity to. So to finally get around to answering your question, some of the types of customers that you may be familiar with are we serve a Honda plant that manufactures cars. We serve a Toyota manufacturing facility. We serve 2 casinos and a horse track. We serve part of Holiday World, if you've ever been there. We serve a Boar's Head, which is a producer of lunch meat. We serve Paoli Peaks ski resort. So those are some of the types of customers that you may have some familiarity with. But we also serve a wide variety of other auto-related manufacturers, coal mines, steel processors, general businesses like Walmarts and things like that. So that's an idea of some of the types of businesses that ultimately get their power from Hoosier Energy.
Yeah, Kyle, I'm glad you kind of stopped and gave that background, because I know some of the dynamics of the distribution cooperatives was in the About Us video, but really to kind of see that linear connection, it's important to kind of reiterate that. And also, in middle school, I had no idea who served my electricity because my parents paid the bill, and whenever I turned the switch on, the lights came on, right? So it was not something that I often thought about. And so that is one of our primary purposes, right, is to generate that electricity so our distribution cooperatives can deliver it directly to the customer. So I appreciate that illustration for our audience. Thank you very much. Okay, our next question is from Carrie. And Carrie says, is there any other way to transmit energy besides through power lines? So Sarah, I'm going to have you take this one and talk about kind of the physics of electric delivery and how you're going to bring this down, not just to the middle school level, but to my level. All right, good luck. And then Ryan, I'm going to have you take a little piece about this as well, talking about microgrids and people generating their own electricity on site and what that looks like in the future. So Sarah, I'll have you talk a little bit about that electricity delivery first.
Yeah, sure. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of looked up some stuff online to try and bring this down into terms of like most people that would be able to understand. So just a quick primer on electricity. So it's the flow of electrons. So what we do with a power plant is we excite the electrons there, and then we transmit them through the power lines to substations, to industries, to homes. And the most efficient, safe, effective way we have at this time to do that is through these metal power lines, metal like aluminum, steel, copper. But what I love about this question is that it got me to think, because I'm like, is there a better way? I think it's a great question. I think it shows a lot of innovation, and that's what you need to like improve things and make changes in the world. So we know that right now, the most effective way we can get power to your house is through this metal line hanging on a power pole. But maybe you guys can innovate a better way to do that. There's lots of opportunity out there, because we know that if you've ever seen lightning strike, you know that electricity can travel through the air. That's not safe. It's not a safe way to do it, but it is a way to do it. If you've ever stood up from a chair and got, shocked, you know that can happen that way. We know that electricity can be transmitted through water. So we know that there are ways that it can move, but these ways maybe aren't super safe, maybe aren't super effective. So, it's an excellent question. I would encourage you to ask these sorts of questions with just about anything. It's like, this is good, but is there a better way to do it? So, keep pushing towards that and see, maybe you can find a better way to do this. But in terms of how it is right now, this is the best option we have. It's the most safe, effective way we can get power to your homes at this point.
In the way it's been transmitted for, years and years, right? And there have been improvements on like conductors and insulators and all that kind of stuff. But it's the same way that it's been transmitted for decades, maybe even centuries.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think about cars or phones or things like that, everything improves. So there's always that space. There's always that. Maybe there's a better way. But yeah, in terms of the improvements we've made on it at this point have been mostly, like what metals do we use in the power lines, which, have less resistance, what's cheaper, what's lighter, those sorts of things. But there's definitely a lot of room in that question. It's a great question.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan, do you want to talk a little bit about on-site generation and what that's looking like and some of the trends in the industry?
Yeah, I can talk about that. And that ties to what Sarah was talking about as well. If you do a little research on way back the invention of electricity and trying to get it to the homes, the wireless transmission is something that's been around since the beginning of time. Look up Tesla, not the company, the inventor. That was one of his, and what we're seeing is that's probably a long way out. But like you said, the transition to more distributed generation, that was a debate early on between Westinghouse and Edison, and we are starting to see a little bit later that people are looking more along the lines of what Edison was looking at, which is localized generation spread out throughout the community, which does limit the need for transmission lines as much. A world without transmission lines is not something that I do see in my future, but these microgrids that we call of home generation, all tied together, that could and can disconnect from the transmission system and self-sustain themselves, are something that we are experimenting with, and that is occurring in the industry and becoming more popular as the cost of these technologies come down. As the cost of solar panels comes down, batteries comes down, and even some consumer-owned generation, such as a generator that you may see on the outside of someone's house to sustain them through a power outage. Making all of those work together through communications and controls, and putting switches in so that you can island your neighborhood maybe from the transmission system, and that neighborhood can use the resources within it to sustain themselves if there was a transmission outage. Also in the future, one of the things that we're looking at is the ability to take that energy that may be in excess from your home or your neighborhood and put it back onto the grid through the transmission lines in different directions, or utilizing that to help with issues that may occur in the transmission, ease congestion. Just like a road, sometimes there's too many electrons trying to get through a transmission line. So if we can almost give an off ramp or give another source to ease that congestion, it allows electrons to pass further or through some of those issues in the transmission system that may occur.
Great. And some of those everyday examples that our students might see are, you referenced solar panels. Maybe some of them have solar panels on their own home, right? Or you also referenced backup generators, right? Sometimes whether that's diesel or what kind of fuel they run on. And then also you're seeing more and more illustrations of things like if folks have electric cars and how they can plug back into their cars and that can power some of their homes. So it's getting really creative on what you can actually have on site. Very good. Okay, well, we're about halfway. So midway point, you guys are doing a great job. Thank you very much. Our next student is Tatiana. And Tatiana says, how much electricity do you guys transmit in 1 week? So I'm going to toss this one over to Kyle. And that could have a very complicated answer, right? And so I'm tasking you, Kyle, to make this as illustrative as possible. And I know our weeks look different depending on what time of the year, but what do you think about how much we transmit in 1 week?
Sure, I'll give that a shot. So we tend to talk about electricity sales using a unit called a watt hour. And we use kind of metric prefixes when we talk about those. So a kilowatt hour is 1,000, and this tends to be the unit we use when we talk about sales to customers, whether it be a business or a household. So a typical house will use around 1,000 to 1,200 kilowatt hours in a given month. But we also talk about megawatt hours, which is 1,000,000 watt hours, and this is how we tend to talk about power at the utility level, like at Hoosier Energy. So in an average week, we sell 150,000 megawatt hours. And so what does that really mean? Well, it's enough to meet all of the electricity needs for that service area that I referred to earlier, right? So all of the rural areas of southern Indiana and southeastern Illinois. So all in all, it's about 300,000 houses and businesses that are using that electricity. But as you noted, Christy, that's really an average over the course of an entire year. So in any individual month could look drastically different than that. So if we're thinking about a month like January, when it may be like 10 degrees outside and it's dark till like 9 in the morning, and then it gets dark again at 5, and you're running your heater because you need to get your house to like 70 degrees, and it's dark, so you're turning your lights on. So now we're selling a lot of electricity in those months like that. And then on the flip side, it's April outside right now, so it's going to be 75 degrees today. It's starting to get light much later in the evening, so we're not running our heaters or air conditioners as much. We're not turning on our lights as much. And so a month like April, and then again in the fall and maybe like September, we tend to sell less than that average in those types of months. So a rule of thumb you could probably use is that the more uncomfortable you are when you go outside, the more electricity we're probably selling.
I think that's a good rule. And it is interesting too about how consumption is changing, right? As we become more energy efficient. We build our houses differently. Our appliances, if you buy new ones, run more efficiently. Even just the light bulbs that you use, right, consume less electricity. So that's on one end. But then as you add more things to your house, we got a hot tub recently and my electric bill has gone up significantly. We also got a Russian tortoise that has a heat lamp and it runs 10 hours a day, and I didn't think I'd see that blip on my electric bill radar, and I have. So it's that dynamic, the pluses and minuses and how they kind of cancel each other out. even on the small little individual household level too. So that has aggregate all those 300,000 folks together and those changes that they're making, and it creates a lot of opportunity and challenges, right, for the utilities to address.
Yeah, you're exactly right. If you don't think about it too deeply, you think, oh, everything's more efficient, so we should be using less power. But you described it perfectly. We tend to add more and more devices, even though each individual device tends to be more efficient.
Very good. Cool. Thanks, Kyle. Okay, our next question is from Asher. And Asher says, what is the average time an employee works for Hoosier Energy? And so, John, I'm going to give this one to you to talk not only just about the dynamic changes in the utility sector, right? How new jobs are appearing as the industry changes, but also talk a little bit about the tenure at Hoosier Energy, and because we have a history of people staying here for a long time, right? Starting here, retiring here. You've heard that in some of the descriptions as people talk about their jobs and how they developed. So why don't you take that one for us?
Yeah, sure. So we actually have one that just retired from our department, the Human Resources Department, last year. She had been with Hoosier Energy for 46 years as an employee, and she actually had a year and a half that doesn't count towards that because she was a temporary while she was a senior in high school when she started. And that's not the only example. I mean, I can think of others that have been here for 35 plus years. Our average tenure is actually 15 years. And when you look at the life of our company and look at the number of those folks that have retired probably in the last 4 to maybe 6 years, that's still at an extremely high number when you look at other industries. And I think that's because of several different things. I think one thing, and especially me coming from the corporate world and the banking industry to the cooperative world and the cooperative principles and kind of how we manage, it's more a family-like atmosphere. I think everybody would probably agree with that. It's not as bottom line driven as what some other companies might be. And I think by being that way, it makes an environment where everybody feels they're contributing in some manner. Our older workforce, a lot of them started when they were in their early 20s or right out of college, and things like job security and pride in what they're doing, development of different technologies, and then with pensions and retirement plans and things like that, that's what kept our older generation, the people that have been here the longest. But by the same token, I think when you look at our newer stars, our newer risers, some of the things that we're doing now, I mean, even with this remote work capacity and some of the things we do to promote, inclusion and diversity and the ability to work from different locations, it's like we're always open to making the environment as productive and as work-life balance as it can possibly be. And you don't see that in a lot of other industries. So I think that's one of the big keys for our retention for people.
Great, thank you. Our next question is from Kalel, and Kalel says, what is the process of converting natural resources to energy? So we touched on this a little bit with the natural resources question, but Corey, I'm going to actually mirror that question from Landon. That was our first question. And if you can talk a little bit about natural gas and coal and how that kind of get that conversion process. And then Ryan, if you can do the same or similar from some of the renewable generation sources. That's kind of how I'd like to attack that.
Yeah, that's another great question. In regards to the process of converting, coal and natural gas to electricity, I could probably sit here for the next week and discuss in detail, from start to finish. But for time purposes, I'll summarize. So basically, the end result is the same, for both coal and natural gas. At the end of the process, we're exciting the electrons and then sending them out on the transmission grid. But I'll start on the coal side. So as our coal supplies come into the plant, we pulverize the coal, and basically it's ground up into a powder, and through a series of very large fans, it gets blown into our boiler. And basically, inside the boiler, it's a big fireball. And what that fireball does, it's a very high temperature, 1,000 degrees. And inside that boiler is a series of tubing, which consists of water supplies. So what that does is the intense heat heats up the water, turns it into steam, and from there it goes through a series of piping and goes into our turbine generators. So that high pressure, high temperature steam turns the turbine blades, which in turn turns the generator. And what that generator does is it excites the electrons. So kind of in a nutshell of the coal plant, that's kind of the high level summary there. For natural gas, it's kind of similar, except for we don't have coal. We don't have the inventory at the gas sites like we do at the coal sites. So when our plants are called to run, what they do is they open up a valve on the natural gas pipeline, and from there the gas molecules get fed into the into the plants, and from there it's kind of it's similar to a vehicle. You've got your gas, it gets pumped into the combustion chamber, and from there that's where the high pressure, high temperatures are combusted, and on the gas turbines, that's what turns the generator, and that's where you get your excited electrons that get sent out into the transmission grid. So basically, I know that's a very high level, very short summary. There's many other processes involved, at both the coal plants and the natural gas plants. One good thing that I was looking online earlier, if you go to Google or to YouTube and type in turning coal into electricity or turning natural gas into electricity, there's a couple good resources there, and there's some it talks about the process there, and also gives some illustrations as well that are some pretty good resources for everybody to kind of look at and to study. So that's kind of the high level, quick summary of the conversion process.
Corey, I think as the mother of an 11-year-old, you're speaking their language by saying going to Google or YouTube, right? So that is their direct resource. Actually, it's probably outdated. There's probably something newer and better. I don't know if TikTok does coal-fired power plant videos, but like that is exactly where they would get their information. So you're right. And I think back to your other point, every piece of that process you talked about has people and processes applied to it, right? So people that work on repairing the generators, or people that work on servicing different things, or employing people or contractors that bring the coal to the plant. So it's much more multifaceted and complicated, but I think that was a really good illustration. So Ryan, now I'll turn to you and talk to you a little bit, or you talk to us a little rather, about kind of future generation sources and renewables.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. And I'll probably second what Corey said. After I talk, go ahead and look this up on YouTube and get a little bit more in depth of an illustration. But as far as renewable sources, like Corey mentioned, even when I worked at Mirren, we'd give tours all the time. And what it comes down to at the end is, for the majority of the generation sources, is spinning a generator, turning a generator. And when you're turning that generator, what you're using is the opposing magnetic fields to excite electrons and create electricity. That same process occurs in hydro, and it also occurs in wind. Instead of using the heat from coal or the combustion from gas to create steam or some sort of byproduct that turns that generator, you're harnessing wind, the power of wind on those giant blades to turn that generator and create electricity the same way. Hydro, the force of the water, whether it be falling through a dam or in a river. That force hits fins, spins a generator, and in turn creates electricity. Solar is slightly more complicated, but the same concept. If you think about solar, it is many solar cells tied together. And if you break it down to an individual solar cell, is like a sandwich. You have your top layer of bread that's going to be, it's going to have a lot of extra electrons. It's going to have a positive charge. Your middle layer, where your meat is going to be neutral, and then your bottom layer is going to be absent a few electrons. It wants electrons. So those things are sitting there, and the electrons that are extra on the top want to get to the bottom, but they have that layer in between that they can't quite get through. The top layer is made of a material where it absorbs and attracts sunlight. That's a little bit of, some people think that solar sites reflect sunlight. They actually absorb it, kind of like eye black. They absorb the light, and when they absorb that sunlight, it's like pool, like shooting pool. The photons from the sunlight hit the electrons and also allow them to start passing to the negative side. What we do with that cell is we make that process a little bit more controlled by connecting the top layer to the bottom layer with a wire. So when they get real excited, they go through the wire rather than trying to pass through the center or the meat in the sandwich. And we control it that way. And connecting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those cells together creates the electricity that is generated from some of the larger solar farms. So again, it's, when you boil it all down, it's the same process. What you're trying to do is excite electrons and get them free and flowing in the direction that we want them to go into. It's just different ways of doing so.
And an appropriate sandwich analogy as we approach the lunch hour, right? So it's very good.
That's what's on my mind, right?
I can appreciate that. So we have one last student question, and then we have an ending question that I'm going to pose to the rest of you. So the last student question is from Joanna. And Joanna says, how many people work for Hoosier Energy? So John, if you could touch a little bit on that and the various locations. I know they got a little bit of an insight on the locations from the About Us video, but if you just kind of want to summarize the number of employees there.
Yeah, so at our last board meeting, we reported 407 employees total. Those are all Hoosier Energy employees. 158 of those people were at the Merriam Generating Facility. 113 of those people work out of our headquarters location there in Bloomington, and obviously remote as well. There's 124 that work out of Owen County. Our PDOC is what we call it, but it's our operations center. And those people can actually be spread anywhere based on what position they're in, south of Indianapolis all the way to Louisville, Clark County, down around New Albany, Indiana, across to Evansville, Indiana, in different remote locations, English and Petersburg and Napoleon, small towns. So they're kind of spread everywhere. We have 5 people that are at our Worthington generating facility, and then as of our last board meeting, we had 7 open positions. I think one other thing to note there, those are the Hoosier Energy employees, but the true number of people that work at or near or around our facilities include contractors and many other people too. So that number is actually substantially higher than that.
Yeah, I know you guys have some temporary employees too that service various departments. And also in the past, Hoosier has been a big proponent of internships at various locations. So that's something both at the high school and at the college level that you guys have participated in, correct?
Correct. We do that every year.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, that was great. I appreciate you guys and your answers, and they've been very good. So I want to end on a note, and I'm going to go in reverse order as I did for the introductions. But what I'd like you to do for this last question is think about what are some things that you wish you would have known in junior high or middle school, as it has to do with career opportunities or what you were thinking about. I don't know about you guys, but I had dollar signs in my eyes whenever I was in junior high. And I thought I was going to be a corporate attorney, and that's not the way that it ended up. I do like to argue a lot, but that didn't translate into my occupation. So if you guys could talk about what you wish someone would have told you when you were in 7th or 8th grade about your career, whether it's specific or just broad, give your 7th and 8th grade selves some advice looking back. And John, I'm going to start with you.
I think one of the biggest things, and I mean, I've got kids that are just about to go to middle school, and I've got kids that have been through middle school, and I've told this to each one of them. Contrary to popular belief, you don't have to decide right now what you're going to do the rest of your life. I've been doing this for 10 years, and I still don't know for sure what I want to be when I grow up. So I think the idea that you need to decide immediately is something that you need to maybe get out of your mind and think about learning as you go. So I talked about how I started out in my degrees in business management from Indiana State University, but all through high school and actually my freshman year of college, I was going for physical therapy, which is entirely different. And it took those classes and those people that I met when I first started studying that to realize that wasn't for me. So I think, the big thing is that you really never quit learning ever, and to embrace that and understand that tomorrow may look a little bit different than today.
Very good. Kyle, you're next.
Well, that was all really good, John. I wish I'd have gone first so I could have used that. Gosh. So what I'm going to say is probably not that much different, but yeah, it's okay not to know right now. I mean, time is on your side. So just kind of keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. Kind of you'll know what you like to do when you kind of start doing it. I think personally, I started taking some accounting classes in high school, and that was probably the first time I had any idea of what I might like to do. And just kind of continuing off of what John said, like even once I started doing that, I haven't spent my entire career in that field, even though it seems to kind of intersect with it over time. So even after if you do something, it doesn't mean you're stuck there for life. So just kind of follow your curiosities, and you'll kind of land probably where you're a best fit, and land where what job is best fit for you. We'll go with that.
Very good. Sarah, you're next.
I would kind of reiterate what John and Kyle said, that, find what speaks to you, but also I would say ask a lot of questions. If you think, you want to be a scientist, you want to be a chemist, find a chemist and a scientist and ask them questions, like ask them what their day-to-day is, because that's how you really know what it's going to be like, being an engineer. And my job in Chicago is tremendously different from my job at Hoosier Energy. So there's all sorts of different levels of engineering you can go into if that's, what you're interested in. But just ask questions of people who are in the industry. If someone says, yeah, I work, I'm a chef, ask them what their day-to-day life is. What do you do on a daily basis? What do you get involved in? But yeah, that would be my advice. Just keep asking questions.
Very good. Yes. Ask questions. As Kyle said, be curious. So next is Ryan.
Yeah, I guess my advice, 6th, 7th grade and going on beyond is learn how to learn, for lack of a better term. Don't memorize the answers just to get through a test or anything like that. Learn how to learn, because it will always change. You will always, and employers will always be looking for someone who knows how to go out and find the answers. And that will help you learn to hit the curveball later on in life. Things are never exactly going to go as you think. So knowing how to learn, knowing how to adjust, is something that I wish I would have taken a little bit more time with in school, rather than just trying to memorize the information to get through a test. That helps out a lot. And just work on those interpersonal relationships with people at your schools, different people that you're not comfortable around in your clique of people, because the workplace is very diverse. And the better you can relate with people, and the better that you know how to learn, the more successful you're going to be in whatever you decide at the last minute in 12th grade that you want to go to college for. So.
Or freshman year of college.
Yeah.
Or senior year of college.
Or sophomore, junior. Yeah.
Okay, great. Corey?
Yeah, for me, I had no clue what I wanted to do, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and even a senior in high school, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. Right after high school, I went out and got an associate's in design technology and did that for a couple of years. And I like doing that, but that wasn't for me. So I went back out into the workforce, and been a part of various jobs. But once I got on with Hoosier Energy, that I realized that it was the company for me. I kind of did things backwards in life as far as schooling. I didn't get my bachelor's until I was, I think, 35 years old. Didn't get my master's until I think when I was 39. So, the main thing is do what you like, what your passion is. Attitude and effort are everything. Even if you kind of for me, even in between the time I graduated high school until the time I started with Hoosier, I put forth a lot of effort and had a really good attitude, and it served me well, even though during that time it wasn't what I wanted to do. Being with Hoosier Energy, I know now this is being in the roles that I have been, and my current role, it's what I want to do. I'm passionate about. So attitude and effort are everything, along with what everybody else's, the advice that they gave.
Yeah, I think you guys all did a great job with that question. And I agree with all 5 of your answers. And I will chime in on this one specifically because, I just felt like I still feel like I don't know very much. But as a 7th and 8th grader, I don't know if my eyes were too big and just, I had other priorities, but I wasn't thinking about it. And that's probably appropriate at that particular age. But I like, based upon what you guys said, the interpersonal piece that Ryan touched on is huge. Just knowing how to navigate relationships is going to get you further than any textbook in the world, unless you're you're in a job that's something highly technical, right? You're literally a rocket scientist or you're a surgeon or that kind of thing. So that interpersonal piece is huge, but also I think the more that you can build resilience, right? And some people have resilience built in from an early age, not because they want it, but because that's just what life has handed them. And they've had constant mountains they've had to climb, or they've had failures because of the position they were put in life, literally what they were born in. And the more that you overcome, the more you fail, the more that you're met with adversity, and you can come back and say, well, I'm still going to try. What else do I have to do? Sit here or get back up and try again? That is huge, right? And so that is a huge asset as far as what corporations are looking for, but also just personally, it's going to benefit you in personal relationships as well, not just professional. So, sometimes you like to hide and be like, well, I don't want to get stung. Well, that bee sting might translate into something else. And so it's important to kind of put yourself out there. And that's kind of a do as I say, not as I do, because I've been scared many times and just like ducked. I'm a little bit of an introvert, and so I try to avoid those kinds of situations. But every single one, in hindsight, while I was going through it, I would not tell you the same thing, but in hindsight, it was something that benefited me, and it really helped me grow. So I really appreciate everybody's time. I know the middle school students do. I know the Chamber of Commerce, Bloomington Greater Area Chamber of Commerce appreciates your time. Hoosier Energy appreciates your time. So thank you, everybody, very much for the time that you've donated today. Any last comments before we end the recording and say goodbye to each other? Okay. All right. Well, thank you again very much, everyone. We appreciate your time and attention, and have a great rest of your Monday.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.